Day one started off as it should. Cloud9, the favorites in the group, went through without dropping a single map. Good performances from Jordan Nothing Gilbert throughout the day, and yeah, he was quite happy about it. Taser kills as well. A lot of discussion about the competitive viability and if it is currently balanced, but nonetheless, they do make it into the majors, something that they wish they wouldn't have to do in a qualifying fashion by not making the playoffs. But that meant Dignitas did drop down from that winners bracket game, and they booked themselves a rematch on Saturday against Immunity in the arena. Today we shift focus though. It's Group D, starting off with Flipside this morning, and as we can see, already at the computers ready to go up against the new roster, a team that did quite well in London, knocked off G2 in the group stage to make it to the playoff stage, and of course there they met Envious, but ultimately a good run considering it's a roster we haven't seen that much from. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Stockholm, and again, this is day 2 of 5 for the qualifying spots. 8 of them available, 7 of them now left as Cloud9's taken the first for the next major in DreamHack Cluj-Napoca. Alongside me is the lovely YNK. You debuted on your desk yesterday after lots of time observing the game, but I think you did quite well.
Yeah, thank you. I had a lot of fun yesterday. I'm still getting used to a lot of stuff and learning, but it's definitely a lot of fun. And I think today is going to be even more exciting than yesterday. We have a lot of the closer matchups, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's an interesting group, and we'll get to that in a minute because there's no real clear-cut favorite. But joining me as well, and you guys are going to be doing some casting. Obviously, Yanko's going to be here with me throughout the day. But Dan, how are you?
I'm good. This match for me is kind of cool because So people ask me, like, who are you a fan of? And I say I'm a fan of good Counter-Strike. But there are these teams have very specific reasons why they can play good Counter-Strike. So I'm super excited for this start today.
And Natsu, of course, you yesterday watched your Finnish compatriots actually be the first to bow out of the tournament. Ultimately, they were a mixed team coming in, so still did quite well considering, put up good numbers against Cloud9. And I was actually talking to Sonny later in the evening. He said Cloud9 was interestingly easier to play than Dignitas in some ways, but that's neither here nor there because they've made it through. But how are you? I'm good, thank you. It's just, yeah, like the boys here said, it's going to be a very even group. It's really hard to call out who's going to be the favorites coming in. So I think it's going to be very even. It's going to be, I think, more tight than it was yesterday. Of course, yeah. I think that goes without saying. There's really, I think any of these teams could make it through. We'll look at the schedule just so we've got a better idea of exactly what those games we're going to see are. Like we said, it is Group D. It doesn't go in order. It's not A, B, C, D as I thought. I think that was done to accommodate the fact that Skyred replaced KeyU, and therefore travel was late booked, and they just didn't want to make it impossible for them to get here in time. But nonetheless, match 1, that's where we start, coming up in about 20 minutes time, 12:30. And like we say, that is going to be Flipside versus Copenhagen Wolves. And then match 2 is immediately, well, I shouldn't say immediately after, depending on if it goes 2 or 3 maps. Everything yesterday went 2 maps, by the way. Interesting to note. That's going to be CSGO Lounge, the new lounge team, former Dorby Gaming, former Gamers 2 before that. And they'll play off against the other American team, CLG, as, again, there's no regional qualifier anymore, but the Americans are dispersed evenly among the groups, with the exception of Group B, and that's because the Mythic team is considered international with the 2 Swedish players.
Winterfox.
Is that officially announced? Can I officially say that? All right, so Winterfox, as they're now known. So we'll see them, I believe, tomorrow in action with Liquid in that group as well. So interesting that they've got the new sponsor, part of the Good Game Agency, and definitely good for them as well after they got dropped from Luminosity. But looking at today's group, let's get into it a little bit. We'll start with you, Yanko, because again, it doesn't really have a clear favorite. Flipside and CLG are the 2 teams that were at the last major. Neither of them obviously made the playoffs, or they wouldn't be here. But I still wouldn't say they're clear-cut in this.
Yeah, I think, as I said, that this group is going to be much more interesting. I would still favor Flipside in this matchup, simply because they've been underestimated so many times. Like, they came through a lot of qualifiers for basically every major. And like for the Cologne major, they had like 2 16-14 games and 2 wins in overtime, so it's clear that they have this mental fortitude in these close matches that allows them to pull through in the end. And this matchup is going to be particularly interesting since their map pools are kind of similar, but with Vito's process, as we mentioned yesterday, it's always a question of whether a team likes to play more to their own strengths, or to Vito to their own strengths, or to the opponent's weaknesses. So we'll see how Blade handles that, since Copenhagen Wolves is a new team and their map pool is not as deep.
Hey, and I did actually talk to Blade and say, did you watch London? Have you seen much of this team? Have you counter-stratted them? And he said, of course I watched. And Blade's known for being quite a good in-game leader.
To be honest with me, agree. I think Flipside is a team that lives off of a lot of structure. That comes out of Blade, really. They have a lot of set things, and it's always fun to watch. But against, that's also an interesting dynamic in this matchup. How is Copenhagen Wolves going to be able to sort of work with that? Are they going to start playing really aggressively and try and disturb the build-up of the strategies that Flipside's going to try and throw at Copenhagen Wolves? And how is that dynamic going to play out in that best of 3?
Dan, what are your thoughts on it? Obviously, Jacob's going to be the guy that leads the way for Copenhagen in terms of strat calling.
Yeah, so with this match specifically, I feel like we're looking at a 2-0 for Flipside, just because I feel like Flipside are more of a complete team.
Already, we haven't even gone that far into it.
We'll get there, and I can do it in more detail, but I feel like one thing you mentioned Blade already, and Blade of course is legendary. He's one of the legendary in-game leaders still, and he actually goes under the radar for a lot of the newer people who aren't as aware of some of the history. But the respect that he has for his accomplishments is quite amazing, and no one will forget what he did with Hellraisers when he coached them for like one event. He did a lot for them,
and they wanted him to stick around as well. They wanted him to be the full-time coach, and he said, "No, I want to play."
But it's not just him as well. They've got Junta, who also is there to look over things, almost kind of like Starix does for Na'Vi, although interestingly...
and Junta was also a player from 1.6, for people who don't know. They played a lot together, like back in, I don't know if it was Kirchnet or something like that. But he was also up there. I think that Blade deserves a lot of credit, not just because of his in-game leading, but because of the fact that he's always like the guy who brings these new players into the game, you know, these new talents, something similar to like what Barry does for the Danish scene. You know, he doesn't have the luxury of basically picking up maybe the best players in his country, except, okay, in this case, let's say he's playing with Markelov, who's been a huge star in 1.6 and everything, but...
1.6.
Yeah. I mean... I come from 1.6, you know, for me,
it's like... waiting for Markelov to really take off. I've been waiting for the past 3 years.
You know, it's always like, why doesn't he play with Job? Why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that? But he's like, you have to give credit for him for his ability to, from that star level he had, and being the carry player, he decided to step down, I mean, to move back, to play more of a support role while they played with Simple, to let him like be the star player and everything.
Like Neo, like as an example, he used to be a superstar at 1.6, and he's gone through like several different roles in Virtus Pro to really just refine himself as an opera now for Virtus Pro. So similar story for Markelov in a matter of him having to switch up.
And all good notes, but we're going to introduce the players because they are getting ready to get into it. So we've got to keep to the schedule a little bit here so that they're not waiting on us.
Sorry,
Dan, I'll let you do. Dan, I'll let you do the honors. Obviously, this is an interesting one because Davcost comes in for them, and Simple is no longer on that roster. We can talk a little bit about that in a second, but go ahead.
Exactly, like big boost to Phil, but not in the way that people would think because of Blade being the leader. So Davcost gets to enter as the dedicated AWPer, but he's going to, of course, be completely different within how Blade runs the team. Markov, of course, as you guys just talked about him, he's a legendary player. Everybody knows that this guy is one of the most storied, one of the most skilled guys out there, but we're yet to really see something great in CSGO. And this is the man that everybody likes to talk about. This is the brains behind the operation. Blade is the in-game leader for this team. He is incredibly good when he's got a team that are all together. And this was the big thing with Simple, is that with Simple, he kind of was this guy that created a lot of division within the team. And now everyone can be as a unit in Blade. We can really see what he can do with 5 people who are really motivated together. And of course, Weld at it, a guy that also picks up the AWP, can be very, very good with it. And one of the interesting things right now is that you would expect with Simple leaving the team that maybe he would take the main AWPing role, but he's gone more to like a secondary role in that sense. So a lot of restructuring going on for this team. And then, of course, finally, one of my favorite players actually is Bondik, someone who flies under the radar. But this guy is
extremely close to the monitor.
He sits extremely close to the monitor, but this guy is so focused, man. When he gets on the CT side, he's one of the most reliable players in the game. He always delivers, like from the most difficult positions. And we can talk about that at more length, but here is the overview of the team.
Yeah, exactly, and best map for them is Cobblestone. I expect we'll see that banned out, and that's due to T-side. They're actually a very good T-sided team in a lot of ways. I know you mentioned Bondik on the CT side, but Mirage, another map that they prefer the T side. Cobblestone, again, maps that traditionally people like the T side on more. And again, we'll get into that because there's lots of discussion about them and the restructuring. But this is a team that we don't have as much information about simply because they're newer. Not to. You know some of these guys quite well from your days playing.
Yeah, Zenda is a guy from Sweden. He's been sort of a type of player who's been under the radar in the second-tier Swedish teams. So I think it's a good match here, combining Norwegian talent and Swedish talent here. Solid player for this team. Rubino, he's more known from already from LGB and then London Conspiracy before that. He's a very solid all-around player, known for his crouch walking M4 spray that he does so well, that is annoying for his opponents. And here's the in-game leader for the team, Zavas. He's already played with Rubino and the boys for a while. Cheeky little smile going on there, and also is capable of putting numbers as well. And a player a lot of you talk about, Twist.
I think Anders likes to talk about him quite a bit.
And someone called Pauf, I've heard before.
I don't know who that is.
But a really capable opper. You know, he's one of those guys who unfortunately seems to disappear sometimes in the matches when his team really needs him. And Jacob, I think he's the superstar of this team. He's bringing the numbers. No matter what the scoreline of the match is, he's always going to be up there and being a player that can really bring Copenhagen Wolves to the next level.
And good call by you as well to say Zavez was the in-game leader. I said Jacob earlier, my mistake. So Zavez is the one with the call for them. Best map so far, Mirage, and that's based on some smaller statistics. But obviously London was quite good for these guys. They knocked out Gamers 2, aka Kingwin, G2 Kingwin, as they're now known. And that was a big achievement for them to make the playoffs. Ultimately, against Envy, they never really stacked up, but it's a great step forward as a newer team.
So this matchup is really cool for me because a lot of people who would have listened to my cast, whenever
who listens to Dan Cast?
Who knows, man? But like the few that do, they'll hear me whenever Zevis is leading a team. I'll be talking about the T size a lot because Zevis has like a distinctive style when he runs the T size on his teams, and I always found it very fascinating because when you're looking at it from like an analytical perspective, you can very clearly see what he's trying to accomplish. Like he constructs rounds, and clearly the movements are to do this, and then to do this, and then it all makes sense. Like there's like really cool path, and that's why the T sides were always really good in a lot of these Norwegian teams. And so I'm curious what he's going to be able to do now because with players like Twist in the lineup, he has so much skill is suddenly injected into the lineup. And the funny thing is, then if you look at Flipside, I feel like it's a story of another in-game leader. I feel like that's what the narrative is here for me. There's two in-game leaders, and they've got new lineups, and they're restructuring them. What can they do with them?
Well, and this is an interesting thing that you say the T side for Zavez because one of those in-game leaders, like you say, is Blade, and his T sides are also very good. And he's standing by right now with Paula to have an interview before this match.
Blade, hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Fine, very good.
Great. So, first opponents of the day, Copenhagen Wolves. Any thoughts on them? How are you feeling going into this match?
We're feeling pretty confident. They're a pretty strong opponent. After changing the Twist plus Zende, I think they're really strong now.
And so, talking about changes, you actually had your team had some recently. You switched out Simple for Davkos, I think it was. Do you feel you're a stronger team now? Do you think that that's working in your favour? I feel that you've probably got a strong opinion on that.
Yes, but it was quite a long time ago, I think, because we already played a major qualifiers, some online matches, and a lot of time has passed. So now I even don't remember those times, but actually with Simple it was a bit house in the game, a lot of house in the game, and now it's like more stable. We have a lot of strategies. Everyone is doing sticking to the game plan, and before it was like more free fall. I don't know how to say it. Like Simple was making a lot of entry frags, and we were It was more likely the game depends on Simple.
Yeah, sweet. So how prepared would you say you are for this tournament compared to other recent ones, for instance, like the last major? Do you think that you're in a better position now than you were then?
Of course, yeah. LAN experience is everything for us. And we had like 2 majors in this lineup and 2 offline qualifiers in this lineup. So now we are a bit we have better team play, better more line experience. Young players are now more confident, and we are more confident in general.
You're known specifically as having one of the best brains in Counter-Strike. Have you been working on some pretty special things with your team?
We didn't expect these qualifiers to start so early. We thought that we would have some time to prepare, and we started immediately to practice. We didn't play all maps. We didn't prepare like all maps, but like 4 of 7, we have confidence in these maps.
And overall then, final question, how are you feeling about all the opponents in the group? So you've got CPH Worlds, and then you could potentially be coming up against CLG or CSGO Lounge in your upcoming matches. Just overall thoughts on your potential opponents?
The whole group is pretty strong. All teams are like equal, I think, in skill and everything. And CSGO Lounge is a new team. They made some changes, and you can expect everything from them. And CLG is a very experienced team. They're playing for a long time with this lineup, and everyone is tough. I think every game will be tough.
Great. Well, it's going to be very exciting to see how you play. Thank you for your time. You can feel free to go sit down. We're going to throw it back to the desk right now. This is going to be an absolutely amazing match.
Thanks, Daddy. I had to do it at least once. Yeah, I think he touched. All right, guys.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. Let's skip over this.
Natsu's going to kill me before the weekend's done.
Didn't happen at all.
Speaking of which, I'm still alive on day 2, so...
Yeah, well, I don't
Where's the mobsters?
I don't want to ruin the event for all the viewers right now. You know, I want to give you a chance.
You probably make it better.
Come Saturday night,
yeah.
you're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm dead in Sweden. Simple as that. Might not be a bad place to live. I'm pretty sure they'd be generous to my body, but we'll see what remains of me. I don't know what Serbia's got planned. Either way, he said some interesting points. Simple's gone. However, we still talk about this because there's so much emphasis. It's just that kind of player that brings in such a persona and demands such attention. But they qualified for the last 2 majors without him because of his ESL ban, and they've played 2 majors without him. So it's not like he's been the factor in these scenarios before.
One of the points here I think was emphasized in the interview was he's like, yeah, Simple wins us rounds basically. He can win us games, but that's not how he wants. That's not how he wants to win. But basically, because you've got this one really good player. But he can't. It's too divisive in the team. Like if Blade is going to get way more, like unless you have a lot of star players on one team, I don't think you can make that star work. I think for someone like Blade, like right now with a lineup where you can actually everyone's on board with the strategies and the tactics at play, that's way more potent potentially than one guy going ham and just winning you games, kind of just because he's really good.
Yeah, in a way, it's more sustainable to have that going for you. Be really strategy heavy and reliant on the whole unit working together. Before, they could rely on that one guy making those openings and fly by that. But now they have to work it together. I think it's more sustainable that way.
And then during that interview, Janko, you were looking at me and talking, and one of the things you were saying with Copenhagen Wolves, and it was one of the things we discussed in London, is, and Dan actually already kind of touched on, is Twist. He can be that X factor for Copenhagen.
Yeah, I think that in their match against Gamers 2, we could see that Twist for some reason, and it was like good that he did it. He was like playing with more freedom, you know, something similar to a JW style. Like it looked like he didn't care as much. He just went for some YOLO pushes up mid with the op, or just peeked underpass and so on. And I think that that's a style that suits Twist more. Like everyone's been saying, and I agree with it, that he's an extremely skilled player. But it seems like he's someone you have to like let him do whatever he wants to do, you know, and that's when you can like get the most out of him. And since Copenhagen Wolves is like, they're not as a mixed team as Rocket were, right. Yeah, but they still didn't have enough. They're a new team. They didn't have enough time to practice and everything. I feel that that's the style they need to use.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, how the great oppers work. Like, you have to be an egoist to be a good opper. They're always the ones that are calling out when they're,
if they're gonna grab
depending on their spawn and
yeah.
stuff. Like, okay, I want to get boosted. I want to go here. That's the way you work with a guy that knows he can make a difference. And let's see if Twist is the kind of guy who's just going to work.
Devilwalk put this in a really fun way once. He called it diva mode. It's like, your oppa has to be a diva. He likes an oppa that's a diva.
I'm going to be a diva right now and steal the mic time back. If
Stealing my thunder again.
We do have,
this guy.
I'm sorry, we do have a map veto on screen, and it, of course, for those of you who don't follow, it's not in order of the bands. It's numbered. It's the same graphic every time. So therefore, Flipside had first choice. They took out Dust 2 right away, not a map they like, and they know that the Copenhagen Wolves actually did quite well on it recently. Therefore, Copenhagen Wolves took out Inferno next, which again is another map. The T side for Flipside is fairly strong. That was followed up then by Train being picked by Flipside, and Natu, you were saying you might have expected this leading into this, so this is interesting. You were right about that. Mirage comes out next, and then never mind the other bands. Obviously, it's Overpass and Cobblestone, which I'm actually surprised Cobblestone went that far and wasn't picked by Flipside first. I would have thought they would have picked it over Train, but Cash is the decider.
To me, it feels like Train is a map that Flipside opts to go a lot in a best of 3 scenario. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but it is something I've tend to see a lot from Flipside. It's still, Train is still a map, I feel like, even though it's already been a few months, but still it feels like teams are not utilizing the map to its full potential, to be honest with you. And I feel like Blade is one of those kind of guys who's going to be using a lot of time theorizing and coming up with ideas, and I guess he's sort of trying to look for a competitive edge in that matter.
Yeah, I actually feel like it. I think I completely resonate with that point, because also I feel like it's actually quite a simple map. It doesn't take a lot to pick it up in the right way. You just have to know the right approach. And I think, as you say, Blade's great for that. Yeah. What? Did I say? Oh my god.
Matt,
and actually, about your point with Cobblestone, Simple was one of the reasons why Cobble was so good. Like, because you get he always would play A with the AWP, and that's where you get the aggressive freedom. The rest of them were quite static by comparison.
So we've got Knife Round going live. We saw Train, Mirage, Cash. One player and prediction from each of you. We'll start on the end. We'll save the best for last. Yanko, Natu, start us off.
Okay. Player to watch for me is Jacob. That guy, he's putting up numbers no matter what the scoreline is. They may be losing 16-8. He's still either putting up plus numbers or just like -2 or 1. So he's going to be the guy I really want to see how he's faring this one. I think it's going to be a 2-1 scoreline. It's going to be super hard for me to call which one it is going to be. But I'm going to go on a limb here and say 2-1 to Copenhagen Wolves.
I would just go out there and say straight away 2-1 Flipside. And the 2 players for me, it's got to be Twist for Copenhagen Wolves. Phenomenal player to look out for. And I got to go with Bondic when it comes to Flipside. Still such a bringer of stability for their CT sides, and that's where they really need stability.
Again, Dan the Rebel picking 2 players instead of 1.
I know,
He just can't help himself, can he?
That was me, actually, wasn't it?
I'll
You
take
just
everything.
said Jacob.
Yeah, but I mean,
you did it right.
I was.
It
was me being a rebel.
Yeah, so the prediction, I think Flipside's going to take it. I think it's going to be 2-1 as well. I agree with Dan, and I think the player to watch is probably going to be Twist, in the manner that if Copenhagen Wolves is to win this, he definitely needs to step up and to put up big numbers.
He is that X factor. I think
sure.
You're right on that. But that's all there is to say, and the rest can be done in the game. Train, Mirage, Cash. Best of 3 to start things off in Group D. To bring you the game, I wish we could put a camera on them. It's Anders and his direct look-alike. I swear they're related somehow. Metas and Anders, please take it away.